Hey, this is Tom and welcome back to my series on Bobby Fischer's seminal work, My 60 Memorable Games. In this video, we'll be analyzing game number 29 that Fischer played versus Efim Geller in Bled 1961. You're not going to want to miss the clinic Fischer puts on in the Ruy Lopez. Before we get started, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and join Team MVP. Thanks for your support. So, Efim Geller, Soviet Grandmaster, two-time Russian champion. He also participated in the candidates tournament multiple times, so definitely one of the top elite players of his era. He also went on to serve as a coach to future world champions Boris Spassky and Anatoly Karpov. So in this game in Bled in 1961, Fischer with the white pieces plays e4 best by test, of course. After e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Fischer puts his favorite Spanish variation on the board. a6, the bishop drops back, and we have d6. So the modern variation of Steinitz defense. Solid opening for black, but definitely a bit passive. So Fischer quickly castles his king. And we have bishop g4 from Geller. As I've mentioned multiple times in my videos, the most important thing that you can do in the opening is to control the center, rapidly develop your pieces, and castle your king. It's a phrase I say countless times during the week to my students, and it rings true even at the games at the highest level. Watch how Fischer adheres to these principles, watch how Geller violates them, and look at what happens. So bishop g4, an aggressive setup, but developing the queen's bishop. Okay, notice Geller's kingside is completely underdeveloped. Fischer plays a quick h3, and after bishop h5, c3, Fischer looking to strike in the center with the classic Spanish move d4, especially since his opponent is lagging behind in development. It's always a good idea, if you can, to open up the center when your opponent's king is stuck in the center. So after queen f6, now we see the point of h3. Fischer wanted to be able to meet this move, trying to compromise white's pawn structure on the king side by playing g4. Okay, now Fischer admits this weakens the king side, but he was confident that he was going to be able to take advantage of Geller's unsafe king before anything bad happened to him. So let's look at what happens. After bishop g6, okay, notice Geller retreats and hits this pawn on e4. But Fischer doesn't play d3 here, simply defending. He plays a very thematic, very instructive move, d4. Boom. Attacking the center, looking to open up the position, looking up to open up lines, even at the cost of this pawn on e4. So Geller takes. At this point, he's kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. But this only accelerates Fischer's development. Knight bd2. Geller drops the bishop back to g6. And here, this was probably my favorite move of the game. A very instructive move. I'll give you the chance to solve it. So pause your videos. What did Fischer play in this position? So Fischer said in this position that he traded one advantage for another, okay? And he played the very counterintuitive move in the Spanish, bishop takes c6, okay? Almost a delayed exchange variation. The reason he played this is now after b takes, okay, Geller's king's not going to be able to find safety on the queen side. And notice how far behind in development he is on the king side. This means that his king is going to be stuck in the center. So Fischer follows up this great move, bishop takes c6, making the queen side basically uninhabitable for the king by, of course, opening up the center. D takes e5, boom. And after d takes, plays knight takes e5. Great move by Fischer, okay? Of course, if the queen takes here, Geller can go ahead and resign. Okay, these are the tactics that creep up in positions where one side's king is safe and the other is stuck in the center. Knight takes e5, great move. Geller could consider castling to the queen side here. This was not the game continuation, okay? But I think this line that Fischer gives really highlights the genius of the move bishop takes c6 on move 11. Because after queen e2, okay, stepping out of this pin, counterattacking this pawn on a6, king b7 defending, and knight b3, knight a5 is just gonna be the end of the world for black. So this is a really good illustration of how weak the queen side is and why this was never really a viable option for Geller throughout the game to safeguard his king. So instead, he tries to get on with his development, bishop d6. So Fischer's knight's under attack and makes another counterintuitive, seemingly anti-positional move. Knight takes g6. I was very surprised when I saw this move because, you know, I tell my students all the time, you don't want to open up, especially in an opposite sides castling position. Now, we don't have an opposite sides castling position, but black is clearly going for a pawn storm, a kingside pawn storm in this game. And when this occurs, you don't really want to open files for your opponent's pieces, especially the rooks like this. Now, this wasn't the game continuation. Fischer said that Geller spent over a half an hour deciding how to recapture this knight. The most logical, h takes g6, opening up the h file, okay, seemingly accelerating black's attack, actually just falls on its face. Knight e4, queen h4, knight takes d6, c takes d6, queen takes d6. Because the king is stuck in the center, white can completely ignore black's initiative on the king side, because after queen takes h3, rook e1 is just going to be mate. So that's why Geller settled for queen takes g6 in this position. But after rook e1, Geller's forced with another difficult position and decision. What to do with the king here? Now, the most logical move would be, and this wasn't the game continuation, but to play knight e7, okay, blocking this check and hoping to preserve castling rights, trying to safeguard the king. But after knight c4, if Geller again goes to the queen side trying to castle the king, queen a4 once again, and we see bishop takes c6 just paying dividends in all of these positions. It's really forcing Geller's king to stay in the center of the board, so he has to just settle himself with playing king f8, getting the king out of the center. Knight c4, Fischer develops the knight to a wonderful outpost. Notice there are no pawns on either side that can challenge it. The knight stands really active on the square. And, of course, all black can do in this position is play for an attack. So Geller plays h5, trying to pry open Fischer's king, okay? Trying to take advantage of this potential weakness on g4 that occurred when Fischer chased the light squared bishop earlier in the game. But once again, and like the other line we saw, Fischer can really just ignore this. Knight takes, c takes, and then bishop f4. I love this move. It's really a multi-purpose move, okay? Developing the bishop to a really active square. But the bishop can also serve as a really nice defensive piece by simply dropping back to g3 and plugging up the g file, should things open. Geller here plays d5, and Fischer plays queen b3. Okay, activating his last piece, the queen. Notice his rooks are connected. His pieces are all active. His king is safe, at least safer than Geller's. And again, look at Geller's development. Severely lagging behind in development. His rooks are split. They'll never be connected. The knight is on its starting square. The king is on f8. Black's position is a train wreck because Geller, who won the Soviet championship 2 times, was on the precipice of becoming world champion. Didn't follow these basic guidelines in the opening. Okay, he just did not develop his pieces and castle his king. He did a decent job at the center, but you got to take care of the other 2 as well. So Geller gets on with his initiative. H takes g4, of course. I mean, you got to try to open up the king and play for an attack here. In this position, I will turn it over to you, though. How does white handle this position? Does Fischer need to be concerned about g takes h3 with a discovered check? Pause your videos and try to find the best continuation. So in this line in particular, we're going to see the merits of Fischer's 18th move, bishop f4, because Fischer can ignore this quasi-attack on the king side and just get on with his own attack. Queen b7. Awesome move. Bringing the queen to the 7th rank, hitting this loose rook on a8, gaining a valuable tempo. And after gh, we have bishop g3. Awesome move, okay? This was one of the reasons Fischer played bishop f4, anticipating this attack by black. He can now use it not only as an awesome attacking piece, controlling a lot of key dark squares in black's position, but also as a great defensive piece. It basically stops Geller's initiative in its tracks. Geller moves the rook to d8, but after Fischer's next move, Geller resigned. So I will turn it over to you for the last time. Fischer to move. What move did he play that forced resignation from his opponent? So congratulations if you saw how weak black is on the dark squares in this position. The dark squares are just an absolute train wreck. Coupled with this king on f8, congrats if you found queen b4. This is just the end of the world. Knight e7 is absolutely forced. And after queen takes king g8, you notice that black is also losing this rook. This rook on a8, because it was loose, it was unconnected, it wasn't defended by its brother, was just vulnerable to attack, and Geller just didn't have a good square to retreat it to. So Fischer in this line would pick up the rook as well. Let's just play on a few moves. Let's say king h7. I'm sure there are a lot of awesome moves, but the move that looks good to me is just, why not forcing the queens off and then just invading with the rook, and white is up just a boatload material, activity through the roof. This game will be over in short order. So I'll put the last move of the game, queen b4, on the board. Wow, what a crusher by Fischer. Okay, so the lesson learned, and this is a lesson I give countless times during the week to my students. You need to control the center, develop your pieces, and castle your king. Okay? Do not be coaxed into a premature attack, especially with your queenside pieces. Okay? Even if it looks like you're going to win a pawn or some material. Okay? Like Fischer gave up the e4 pawn. Fischer critically weakened his kingside, but black's development was just non-existent. Couldn't take advantage of it, and ultimately it came back to haunt him. So I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Don't forget, smash that subscribe button, join Team MVP. You're not going to want to miss my next installment when we look at game number 30. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.